George Orwell is known for his books, but his real name was Eric Arthur Blair. He was born on June 25, 1903, in Motihari, India, which was part of the British Empire. His dad, Richard Walmsley Blair, worked in India for the government, helping to make a drug called opium. Eric's mom, Ida Mabel Limousin, was from Surrey, England, and had a French dad and an English mom. She grew up in Burma, where her family were merchants. Ida married Richard when she was 21, and he was 39. They had 2 kids, Marjorie and Eric. Eric was born after Richard moved to Motihari for work. The Blair family had noble roots, but weren't rich anymore. Eric had a tough childhood with health issues, but he knew he was lucky to be part of the British system. In 1904, Eric, his mom, and his sister moved to England, leaving his dad in India. By late 1905, they lived in Henley-on-Thames. Eric was often alone, but remembered his childhood fondly. He was his mom's favorite, but he didn't get along well with his dad, who was away a lot. Eric's dad visited England for 3 months in 1907, during which his wife gave birth to their 3rd child, Avril, in 1908. Eric loved reading and joined St. Cyprian's School in Sussex in 1911. The school prepared students for higher education, teaching subjects like English, math, history, and classical languages such as Latin and Greek. Eric was a smart student, always near the top of his class, and he loved playing cricket. His dad retired and moved back to England in 1912, and the family settled in Shiplake. Eric made close friends with the Budicom kids Jacintha, Prosper, and Guinevere. He and Jacintha shared a love for literature, and Eric dreamed of becoming a famous writer, even writing plays inspired by William Shakespeare. When World War I started in 1914, Eric saw crowds of young men eager to join the army. He even wrote a poem encouraging people to enlist, which was published in a local paper. Though he later didn't like his time at St. Cyprian's, he won school prizes and did well in his studies. Eric won a scholarship to Wellington College, but later transferred to Eton College, one of England's most prestigious schools. He felt he didn't fit in because he was there on a scholarship, but he lived on the school grounds, which was a special privilege. Even though he worked hard at his previous school, he relaxed more at Eton, and his grades suffered. He struggled with Latin and was moved to less demanding classes. This meant he couldn't go to top universities like Oxford or Cambridge. By the time he started at Eton College in May 1917, the excitement for World War I had faded, and the war became a background event. Older teachers returned to replace those who had joined the army. Eric's family faced challenges when his dad, at 60, joined the army in France, and his mom worked in London. Eric spent holidays with the Budicom family and shared his love for writing with Jacintha. He was inspired by writers like G.K., Chesterton, H.G. Wells, and D.H. Lawrence. By 1920, Eric had 1 more year at Eton, and his parents discussed his future. He hoped to go to university, but his dad wanted him to join the Imperial Civil Service. In the end, Eric followed his dad's wishes, even though his grades made it hard to get a university scholarship. After finishing his time at Eton, Eric decided to join the Indian Imperial Police. He took the entrance exam and passed, requesting a posting to Burma, where his mom had spent much of her childhood. He sailed from Liverpool in October 1922 and arrived in Yangon, the capital of Burma, a month later. Burma had recently been taken over by the British Empire, and the country was under military rule. Eric completed his training and was assigned to different posts, learning the Burmese language quickly. He worked as an assistant and later as a subdivision officer, overseeing police stations and gathering intelligence. Despite his success, Eric felt unhappy and decided to resign from the police in 1927. He announced his decision during a family holiday in Cornwall, which caused a big argument with his parents. Eric decided to pursue a career as a writer instead. He visited an old tutor from Eton for advice and moved to London, finding a place to live on Portobello Road. In late 1927, Eric started exploring the poorer parts of London, dressed in old clothes to blend in. He wrote about his experiences and the kindness of the working class, using these observations for his writing. In early 1928, he moved to Paris to write and experience the literary scene, submitting short pieces to magazines and writing journalism about censorship and the working class in England. Eric's time in Burma was tough. He saw how the British ruled the country and how the local people lived. He learned about the bad things the British did and how the local people suffered. He worked hard and moved to different places, but he didn't like what he saw. He decided to quit his job in the police and become a writer. He told his family during a holiday, and they were upset. But Eric was sure about his decision. He moved to London and started writing about his experiences. He explored poor areas and wrote about the working class. He even moved to Paris to be part of the literary scene. He wrote articles and short stories, but he struggled to get published. He lived a simple life and worked hard to become a successful writer. In Paris, Eric lived in a poor area and made friends with other writers and artists. He wrote about his experiences and the hard lives of the people around him. He even worked as a dishwasher to make ends meet. He got sick and spent time in the hospital, but he kept writing. He wrote a story called The Spike about his time as a tramp in London, but it took a while to get published. He met important people like Sir Richard Rees and Max Plowman, who helped him with his writing. He moved back to England and lived in Southwold, where he wrote more stories and book reviews. He worked as a teacher and even cleaned houses to make money. He went on trips to pick hops with workers and wrote about his adventures. He wrote a diary about his trip and used it for his book Down and Out in Paris and London. He sent the book to a publisher, and it was finally published in 1933. People liked the book, and it made Eric a published author. He used the name George Orwell for his books, combining the name of the patron saint of England, St. George, and the River Orwell in Suffolk. After his book was published, Eric started to get more attention for his writing. He wrote another book called Burmese Days, which was published in the United States in 1934. This book was about his time in Burma and the people he met there. He also wrote a book called A Clergyman's Daughter, which was published in 1935. This book was about a woman who had a tough life and ended up in London. Eric also wrote a lot of book reviews and articles for magazines. During this time, he met a woman named Eileen O'Shaughnessy, who was studying psychology at University College London. They fell in love and got married in June 1936. Eileen supported Eric's writing and helped him with his work. They moved to a small village called Wallington in Hertfordshire, where Eric could focus on his writing. He wrote a book called The Road to Wigan Pier, which was published in 1937. This book was about the poor living conditions in northern England. Eric and Eileen were happy together, and they supported each other in their work. In 1936, a civil war started in Spain. Eric wanted to go there to write about what was happening and to fight against the rebels led by Francisco Franco. He joined a group called the United Workers' Marxist Party and went to Spain in December 1936. He fought on the front lines and saw how bad the war was. He also saw how the different groups fighting against Franco didn't always get along. In May 1937, Eric was shot in the throat by a sniper and had to leave Spain. He and Eileen barely escaped because the government was arresting people from their group. This experience changed Eric's views on politics. He wrote a book called Homage to Catalonia about his time in Spain, but it didn't sell well. He started to think more about socialism and how it could help people. He also saw the problems with communism and how it was being used in Spain. Eric's time in Spain made him think more about politics and how he could use his writing to help people. When Second World War started, Eric wanted to help his country. He worked for the BBC making news reports for India. He wrote a lot of essays and articles during this time. He also started writing a book called Animal Farm, which was a story about animals taking over a farm. The story was really about how bad leaders can be and how they can trick people. He had trouble finding a publisher because the story was critical of the Soviet Union, which was an ally during the war. Finally, in 1945, the book was published and became a big success. People loved the story, and it made Eric even more famous. He also wrote a lot of book reviews and articles for magazines. He even wrote a regular column for a newspaper called The Tribune. During the war, Eric and Eileen adopted a baby boy named Richard. Sadly, Eileen died in 1945 while having an operation. Eric was very sad, but he kept writing and taking care of Richard. He moved to a small island in Scotland called Jura to focus on his writing. Eric's last book, 1984, was published in 1949. This book was about a future where the government controls everything and watches everyone. It was a warning about how bad things could get if leaders had too much power. The book was a big success, but Eric was already very sick. He had been struggling with health issues for a long time. He got married again to a woman named Sonia Brownell, but he died on January 21, 1950, at the age of 46. Even though he died young, George Orwell left behind important books that made people think about politics and society. His books are still read and studied today, and he is remembered as one of the great writers of the 20th century. George Orwell's books have had a big impact on the world. His stories about politics and society have made people think about important issues. Animal Farm and 1984 are still read and studied in schools and universities. His ideas about socialism, communism, and totalitarianism have influenced many people. Some people think he was a great writer who understood society well. Others think his books were too critical of certain political ideas. Either way, his work has started many conversations about how society should be run. What do you think of George Orwell? Was he a great novelist with deep insights into human society? Or was he a writer whose books have caused more harm than good? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to Whimsy Stories, give it a like, and share it with your friends.